Greetings, class. Welcome back to another session here of TESOL Methods and Materials. Today we're going to be looking at curriculum design. We're going to be going through some situation analysis, needs analysis, problematizing, specifying goals, conceptualizing a syllabus for a course, and then program evaluation. If you've ever worked in at a school and they have a specified curriculum that's written down, you're probably in luck. That's a good thing. I've worked at places where there was no syllabus, there was no curriculum. I've actually worked in places where I've asked them, can I have a copy of the curriculum, can I have a copy of a syllabus? And their answer was, once you make it, then we'll have it. Not a good thing. We need to have something to aim at, a goal to be reached. As one of my professors once said to me, if you aim at nothing, you will probably hit it. And we don't want to hit nothing, we want to hit something. We want to have a goal so that we can measure success or not throughout the process. The first thing we want to do is we want to analyze the situation. We walk into a school and they need to set up a curriculum. What's the setting like when we get there? What's the educational setting? What type of school is it? What type of rules do they have? What type of hardware do they have for you to use, or software do they have? And so that you can assess how you're going to build this curriculum based on the materials that you do have. You can look at the class characteristics, the type of students that are going to be in your classes. How many are going to be in the class? Is it going to be a class of 5 or a class of 50? Are they going to be from one culture or many cultures? So we want to try to figure out what those class characteristics are. It's very nice when you have a homogeneous group, everybody from the same culture, because then you'll have less that you'll need to grapple with, as opposed to when you've got people coming from 4, 5, 6 different cultures. You want to look at faculty characteristics. Look at the faculty that you're going to be working with, be they ESL faculty or mainstream class faculty. You should know what their strengths and weaknesses are. Do they have any ESL training? Do they need ESL training? Find out about your faculty so that, again, you can use them in the building of the curriculum. When I worked at one school, I know that the ESL faculty would deliberately go and interview the mainstream faculty to find out what areas do the ESL students need to master before they get into their classes, and we would use that information in building a curriculum. You can look at the course content managers. Course content managers is basically who's controlling the content of the course. When you're building a curriculum, obviously you have generic linguistic guidelines that you want to implement, but the school may also have a say into what is being taught or what's not being taught. The program itself may have an indication as to what's being taught or what's not being taught. Maybe it's a specialized school for technology, or a specialized school for science, and so therefore they're going to be using specialized vocabulary, specialized procedures that you may not have wanted to put in, but are now being required that you have that put in. So you may be given a course and everything's done for you. Here's the syllabus, here's the requirements, here's the textbook, and everything may be already done. What is that situation? Who has control? Personal note, my recommendation is that we give the teachers as much freedom to develop their courses as is possible, while at the same time establishing curriculum-wide objectives for the students to master. Lastly, look at the course assessment requirements. How do we assess a student's progress? Do we use traditional means or do we use non-traditional means? Or do we use a combination of both? What are who has control over assessment? Where does that assessment data go? How's it used? And if it could be that none of it is being used. There is none type of thing, and no one's using it to try to improve the program. And that's what we want to be able to do. We want to use this assessment information not only to help students recognize what they need to learn, but also to allow the school to find out what they have to do to improve their program. Okay, so we want to check out what's going on. We want to check the system. What do we have? What am I working with? Type of thing. Next thing that we're going to want to do is do a needs analysis. Now we have objective needs analysis. And that's the stuff that, the school requires this, the students, they want to be able to do this, And so those are just objective requirements. By the end of the semester, the students are going to be able to complete A, B, C, and D. They're going to be able to master, A, B, and C. Then there are subjective needs. Those are the needs some of them are not necessarily linguistic related, but we want to make sure that it's interesting. We want to make sure that students feel engaged while they're taking the classes. We want to make sure that students believe that it's valuable for them. So we want to have objective needs and subjective needs. I, as a curriculum developer, need to find out what those needs are. So I need to interview people. I need to talk with the principal and the teachers and the parents and the students to find out what it is that they want the students to learn. And then, of course, the subjective needs. How do we convince the students? What do we need to do? What are the needs that these students have that we can satisfy through these classes? Objective needs and subjective needs. There will always be problems. Always have a plan B. Always have a plan C, I might even say. Especially when you're dealing with technology. There are a lot of times when technology simply doesn't work. Nowadays, more and more people are putting things on the web, but bear in mind there are days when the web is down and the materials that you wanted to have access to don't exist, and so you're stuck. So you need to be prepared to handle whatever that situation is. It may also be that you create some materials, they're all in line with your objectives, they're well thought out, and yet they fall flat on their face because students are not interested in them. Well, what do? You've got to have a plan B. You need to be able to predict what's coming and be prepared for the possible problems that might arise. I forget the gentleman who said, always be prepared for the unexpected. Chance favors the prepared mind. That's the quote. So we want to be prepared just in case something bad happens. How to predict and prepare. Well, I would recommend that when I create an ESL class and let's say I have 90 minutes in this class, and I realize, okay, I have 90 minutes, so there are about 9 activities that I could do at 10 minutes per activity. Means that I want to create 9 or 10 different activities for that class. I probably won't use them all because most activities take more than 10 minutes, but I'm going to have them ready just in case. Okay? So you want to be able to prepare ahead of time. Know that it's coming. I mean, it's not a problem of if. It's a scenario of when, and you want to be prepared for when it comes. Know that problems are going to arise. Be prepared for them. When developing a curriculum, you need to create goals and objectives. Goals are the more generic, broad-based, overarching type of educational goals. Objectives are more specific. They're more measurable. They're specific skills or abilities or knowledge that your students are going to be able to master, or a particular skill that they're going to be able to learn how to do in a particular activity. Oftentimes the syllabus will have these words in it. By the end of the course, the students will be able to do the following type of thing. And then you list those things. And these things, in my opinion, should be as specific as is possible. Any goal, any objective that you have should be measurable. There should be some way to measure whether that student has indeed accomplished that particular goal. And so you should list those when you're doing that. So when you're creating a syllabi or a curriculum, which would be more broad, you want to make sure that you have specific goals. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking about a scope and sequence, that scope and sequence is essentially the curriculum in one page, a curriculum in one big graph. And so you want to be able to have that ready to go for your students and for any potential teachers or outside stakeholders. When you're thinking about the syllabus now, we've gone from the whole program, now we're breaking it down into a syllabus. And this is normally what I would recommend if you're going to be building a curriculum. Build the goals for the entire curriculum, and then hand that off to the teacher and let them build the syllabi. They have the curricular goals, they have the curricular objectives. They can now take this and fashion it in a way that suits them, that suits their students. So when you're thinking about getting a syllabi, I'm already assuming you have a copy of the curriculum scope and sequence. You have a copy of what your course is supposed to cover even before you get there, so that you can develop that properly. But what's in a syllabus? Well, there are goals, again, broad reaching for the course. There are objectives, specific, measurable goals, measurable and attainable goals that should be in the syllabus. You should have some form of a schedule that includes the skills, the lexical definitions, the materials, and the topics. All that should be somehow listed in there so that they know. You should list all textbook and materials that your students are going to be required to have. You should have a grading scale, notes, and rules. You may want a bibliography, but you want to provide sufficient information so that when they hand this off to somebody else, somebody can understand what it is that you have gone through. I do recommend a more detailed schedule. Although I do not like to see a 15-page syllabus. Try to be as concise as possible at the same time. Conceptualizing a syllabus. The last part of building a curriculum is some form of assessment, which we are going to need, and the assessment is the final leg of the curriculum here. There are traditional types of assessment, and an assessment is not necessarily a test. An assessment is a broader idea relating to how to evaluate students on their language abilities, and there can be, again, a variety of assessments. An assessment is trying to determine the quality of something. It's not trying to determine a grade. It's probably less of an achievement type of activity. It's more of a proficiency, trying to find what's going on within the classroom. A traditional type of assessment might be a test or a quiz or a project. More recently, they have alternatives of assessments like a task, a journal, an essay, peer evaluation, or even self-evaluation. These are not I wouldn't necessarily use them as the mainstay, peer evaluation, self-evaluation, but it's very good to give these to your students because it gets them to be thinking about their own language, and that's a good thing for them as a learning tool. So we need assessments. Every time we do something, we need to be able to assess it to find out whether it's been done or if it's been done well or not. After you're done creating a curriculum, you get to start all over. Yay! Yes, you'll want to do program evaluation. Just like they have with any other life cycle with regard to product life cycle. I know in software they also have software life cycle. And it's that same system where they begin by developing an idea, and they design it, and they plan it, and they build it, and after they build it, they hand it out, and then they evaluate it and go through that process again. So it's a circular process where they're continually trying to improve upon what they're doing. So we're looking at a program that we just made, a curriculum that we just developed, and we want to find out, do we have all the required pieces? Do we have all the elements that we need in this curriculum? Evaluate them when they come. What's good, what's bad, what's strong, what's weak, how can we make it better? Look at the other aspects as well. In the curriculum, you have objectives. Have they been met? In reality, have they been met? You can ask your students if they have. You can test your students to see whether they have. Were the materials appropriate for the objectives at hand? Are the assessments reliable? And that's a statistical term, reliability, having to do with whether or not a particular test will yield similar results over and over again. The test is reliable or not. Lastly, do all the participants approve of the program that was developed? Do people agree that this is good, that's useful, that it's helpful? And so when you're evaluating a program, these are some of the aspects that you may want to consider. We're going through back to the beginning again. And that's all I have for curriculum design. I would like to show you online some samples of a curriculum design, our curriculum that's online you can look at. I'm certain there are others that are out there as well, but it's good for you to see these, and it would be excellent if we had time to tell you to go through the process of developing a curriculum maybe for your school. In fact, that might be good for your project, now that I think about it. If you're in a school, developing a curriculum that describes the entire program that you have. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer them, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye now.